What is luxury? And why should we care? Probably shouldn't. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker Residential Sales Manager of ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 277. And I hope you're all having a great day. So, today's episode is one of those ones, like others, they just sort of fall into my lap because various things popping up, and I like to call it the universe shouting at me. Some people used to call it serendipity, where you just, all of a sudden you start seeing the same things. And the more mystic people would be like, oh, these are the gods speaking to me that I must do something. And other people just blow it off and, oh yeah, that's just shapes in the clouds, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. But I'll take the blessings where I get them regardless of the source, all right? So today's episode is on luxury. Luxury things, luxury places, luxury living, and of course, luxury real estate. But first, let's get the numbers out of the way, because one, it's a great way for about half you guys to either decide to fast forward a few minutes or just like quit listening to this podcast altogether. And it shows up on my demographics and gives me important data to figure out how to streamline and make this show better for you. So these are the numbers for May 27th, 2026. Actives this week are 25,483, down 40 from the previous week. Our new listings were 1,928. Down 361. Contracts this week are 2,230, which are up 452 from last week, and our closings were 1,791. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 560 new listings. Cromford report numbers, these are fun. All right, because supply actually fell to 106.9 on the Cromford scale, but demand also decided to fall off too to 87.5. And because our demand fell faster than our supply, our Cromford report number fell to 81.8. How's the market, boys and girls? Not what anybody wants it to be. All right. But if we look at the normal areas, if you're in Fountain Hills, you're living life pretty good. Even though you've dropped, you're still at 156.3, meaning there is roughly 3 buyers for every 2 houses out there. Other leaders on the board are Chandler, Scottsdale, Phoenix, Tempe, Glendale, Mesa, Gilbert, Paradise Valley. Don't care they're rich, but hey, we're going to be talking about them here in a second. And then our balanced markets are Cave Creek and Avondale, all right? And then Peoria. Our buyers markets are, of course, Goodyear, Surprise, Santan Valley, Maricopa, Queen Creek, and Buckeye, all right? Biggest losers this week was Avondale. Biggest gainers, I would say, would probably be Cave Creek. So, like I said, just every once in a while, the topic falls in your lap. So let's start at the top. There is a real estate concept out there. And it hooked me because a couple years ago when I was putting a lot of people into independent living and assisted living communities, I noticed some of these independent living communities are really nice. It's like you're going to be living at the spa, right, for the next 5, 10, 15 years of your life. We're talking luxury dining, luxury living, great locations, pools. It's going to be a nice life for you. Closing tomorrow, putting a person into a 55 and older community, and this is a mobile home community, 55 and over, still has a 9-hole golf course, heated swimming pool, pickleball courts. All right, lot rates out there about $900 a month. So sell your house, buy one of these double wides, which are not bad. The newer manufactured homes are much better than that little rickety trailer you used to go get beer at when you're a teenager. All right, these are rock and rolling kind of places and stuff. And it's when I was moving Gary into one of these things, I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, this is almost like dorm life. And I can really see marketing these things to those, those millennials and Zoomers that we're always scoffing at from my wise old age of Generation X over here, who don't want to grow up and don't like adulting. All right. I could see the appeal. Hell, there are days I could see the appeal. All right. And then sure enough, some smart bunny decided to do that. All right. So what we're looking at is an organization called Elysium. All right. And Elysium is independent living and dorm life for the masses. Now, this is what this place offers you, all right? Starting rates are about $1,800 a month, right? Which is pretty much a one-bedroom rental nowadays in downtown Phoenix. But this is what you get with it. And it's not just the living, it's the lifestyle and the community. You get your space, all right? Even their studios have a separate room from the bedroom and the living area. Most studios, at least my age, it's a room. There's your kitchenette in the corner. There's your space to put your futon. It's basically a glorified hotel room. But so you get this space, and it has a dining hall where they're going to serve you 2 meals a day. So with your rent, you're getting 2 meals a day that you don't have to prepare, just like living at home with mom and dad. The hook is really, not only do you have the mess hall, right? Not only do you have your space, but you have community and events. You'll have yoga classes. You'll have, interest, affiliation group meetings. You'll have planned nature walks. You'll have a petting zoo, literally petting zoo. All right. All of these things that you can do. And you can go work in the community garden. And the community garden is where they get the organic food to serve you in the organic mess hall. Also on top of this is that you have community vehicles. And you have the right for your rent to reserve and use one of the Teslas for up to 4 hours a week. So now you don't have to worry about car payments, especially if you work from home. So if you work from home, like a good good percentage of America does today, especially if you're in one of the tech fields, you can, for the low price of about $1,800 a month, plus a $500 annual services fee. There's another junk fee for you, boys and girls. You can live in this community. There's your space. There's your food. There's a car you can borrow every once in a while from mom and dad. Here's some chores you can do. And the thing about doing those chores, and let's call them chores because that's what they are, you don't have to, but if you do them, you get credits. And those credits you can use to purchase other activities or reduce your overall monthly rent. So you could move in there and pretty much do a lot of the things, and I'm going to assume up to including cooking the food in the kitchen, right, and giving into the community. Now, the communists out there in my audience, and there's a few, all right, are probably just chittery about this. I'm like, oh my God, that sounds great. It's like a commune, except with work, It's like, yeah, it's a commune with producers who are actually bringing revenue in from the outside, so your little happy commune activity works. Maybe that model will work out. All right, I just think it was interesting. So, and I'm sitting here, and I kick this over to one of my lefty friends. All right, friend of mine, former client of mine, she had to move out of Red State, Arizona, because she couldn't stand the politics. So she moved to Blue State, Washington. And she is a classic example of upper middle class liberal. All right, she's got her acre farm outside of Kent, where she's quite happily, her nearest neighbors are, hundreds of yards away, and they all have guns. So she's safe because she's got other people between her and the main road with guns. You got to drive by gunboy to get to her place. All right. So, and I send this to her and go, hey, this is an interesting concept. Now, just to let you know, let's break it down. She actually works for the state of Washington, the government, and she's in their electrification department. All right. And she has gotten to give testimony in front of the Washington State Congress, court, whatever they call them over there, Assembly, People's Assembly, and about the importance of electrification in Washington. And what I mean by electrification, we're talking putting charging stations. So Farmer Bob, Farmer Ron Ratcliffe, okay, can bring his electric sprayer truck in to his charging station, charge it up to get his 150 miles worth of range, and then go take his, sprayer truck with about 2.5 tons of liquid chemical death, driving down the back roads of Washington State, spraying for weeds. All right, that's her job, is to go out there and to pitch to Farmer Ron Ratcliffe. Hey, yeah, this is the future, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and this is great, and this is wonderful, and you're not going to have to burn any of those nasty diesel, and this and that, and the other thing, it's going to save Gaia, and, and of course, there are billions and billions, both state and federal tax dollars going into propping up this system, and bringing electricity to the, benighted people of Moses Lake, Washington, right, so... And I know she went to Moses Lake, Washington, because she literally texted me, I'm in Moses Lake right now. I'm like, hey, I was born there. So anyways, so I kick her this Elysium concept, and she loses her ever-loving mind on me. Not at me, okay, but on the concept, because she associated it in a way that I didn't with a movie that came out in 2013 called Elysium with Matt Damon. And the concept behind that is, all the haves, okay, when I mean the haves, I mean the rich 1%, the Elizabeth Warrens and the Bernie Sanders, are all living up on a space station, floating amongst the heavens. And we mere mortal, the bottom 99%, we're all stuck here on Earth, scrabbling for scarce resources like 50-year-old cans of dog food that we found in a burnt-out PetSmart. All right. I never watched this movie. I saw the trailers and went, oh, God, that is so not me. And Matt Damon is so overrated as an actor. Yes, I said that, Matt. Come at me. So, and that's what she saw when she saw this. It's a gated, walled, perfumed community filled with luxury. And so the elites can go hide and pay their $1,800 a month and be away from the poors. I thought that was a really interesting take, all right? I'm looking at this as the infantilization of Americans, all right? And she's seeing it as they're escaping me. I'm like, but it's got a Tesla. Yeah, but that's a Tesla and Elon Musk. Oh, right. Oh, yeah, I forgot. Elon Musk, all right, said something bad, and now, the man who single-handedly brought electrical vehicles and a commercially viable system to America is the Antichrist because he didn't follow the party line. Right? And the other thing that really wigged her out was in the brochure that I sent her online. Oh, by the way, in the show notes below, I'm going to send you it will be the link to this website. All right, promoting this. They mentioned AI concierge, and that meant data centers. And data centers are bad. So it's interesting that a business model, and trust me, this is all coming around somewhere. This business model that 5 years ago, 3 years, 4 years ago is single-handedly would be the crown jewel of what they used to call the 15-minute walking community. All right, and a 15-minute walking community was brought out by the European Union of, in a perfect world, everybody will live in a community that the majority of things you need to do are within 15 minutes of you. So you could walk to them. You need to go down to the pharmacy, you go downstairs, you walk a block and a half to the pharmacy, you come back. You need to go to the grocery store, there's one downstairs. There's an Aldi's downstairs. You need to go to an entertainment theater, you go down to the group entertainment area. Whatever. You need to go to the corner bar, there's a bar on the corner. And that was really being promoted along with eating bugs. And just from a social war standpoint, I was watching this. I'm like, I could actually sort of handle a 15-minute community as long as a 15-minute community, out in the middle of frickin' nowhere, meaning it's a small town. But that's not what this European concept of a 15-minute community was. The whole concept is that you're going to live in a big, massive city like Amsterdam, but everything you're going to need is going to be within 15 minutes of you. So there's no need for your dirty cars creating carbon dioxide, making the grass greener and making it easier to feed humanity. All right. So this is the luxury concept of the 15 community. This is not the projects of the 60s. All right. Those monuments to the failed war on poverty. Newsflash, kids, we lost the war on poverty. That turned into desolate hellholes. Right. And why did they fall into desolate hellholes? Right. Because you didn't have people who had ownership of the property. They didn't feel a responsibility to maintain the common areas. Right. Because deep down inside, when it all goes down to it, the tragedy of the commons is the thing. Right. But here's another concept of that. It's just, it didn't work for the poors. But now we can scrape off the little, white collar, elitist aspirant, upper middle class types who also don't like to adult. And we can funnel it off into that. So I was just really amazed with her response to that. All right. It was AI data centers bad, Tesla bad. All right. Look at these people trying to get away from the mass of humanity so they don't feel any responsibility to them. All right. Interesting concept. So everything that this place was advertising was a luxurious dorm lifestyle. That's why we have organic foods. That's why we have yoga and Pilates instructors. That's why we have masseuses. This is why we have nature walks in the petting zoo. Right? So that was just an article that was in my head. Then this morning, in Mon, Stephanie Alton talks quiet luxury, the coming Gen Z takeover. This woman is self-professed millennial, and she's talking about how luxury, right? New quiet luxury. Luxury is no longer ostentatious. Personally, I blame Trump. I really, really do. I think Trump, who made his brand being so incredibly over the top rich. And I'm not just saying he $ rich. I mean, he had gold-plated shitters. All right. That there is like a reaction to that. Right? And she's talking about quiet luxury and how luxury homes are no longer those big ostentatious things on the hill that everybody has to look at. Right? It's getting more reserved, refined, less ostentatious. All right. A little quiet luxury is like you're going to have a smart house that the door is just going to open for you when you walk in. Right. And your car, as you're driving, if you are still driving to and from work, all right, when you are within 15 minutes of your house, your car is going to signal your house, and your house is going to lower the air conditioning temperature. But you're rich. Why do you care? Oh, that's right. You're doing that so you can tell your friends about that feature on your house to virtue signal your class status. And that's where we get to Rob Henderson. Rob Henderson is a young man. He grew up an orphan. Right? He grew up in foster care. Rob Henderson grew up in poverty. Rob Henderson grew up in foster care. Rob Henderson joined the United States Air Force. And after 8 years, left the Air Force and wound up being admitted to Yale, where he got to sit down with his classmates, all freshmen, 8 years younger than him. And trust me, there's a big difference between 26 and 18. Mentally, emotionally, everything. They're almost like two different species. All right. And the older I get, the more that's, divided. It's like, let's talk about them damn 30-somethings. But, and he's sitting there watching his classmates talk about the nobility of poverty. And none of them have ever been to a Taco Bell. All right. And he came up with something called luxury beliefs. right, as capitalism does its thing, all right, and the cost for luxury items, Gordon Gekko's cell phone, all right, I really wish I had something here as big as a Gordon Gekko cell phone, where you're sitting there and you're like calling in an artillery strike on the Nazis with your huge Motorola, cell phone. That used to be, the earlier models were mounted in the trunk of your car because the receiver was that big. Is now this. Okay, this is an iPhone, all right? iPhones are really weird because they signal to other Apple users, oh, I too have an iPhone. All right. That's the reason why you have an iPhone. If you text somebody else with an iPhone, the color changes on the text to let you know you're talking to one of us. All right. So Rob Henderson says, as the entry point, the price point of luxury items, all right, you can literally go down to T-Mobile right now and get a burner cell phone for about $50. The first Motorola one cost thousands of dollars in 1980 money. All right. Rob Henderson says, as you see luxury, the physical aspects of luxury get lower and lower and lower and easier, right? People who wanted to signal that they were part of the elite, all right, had to create things called luxury beliefs to signal, I am of the elite. And they'd say really ostentatious things, all right? They would, they would say stuff like, oh, it's okay for a woman to have babies out of wedlock and raise 3 or 4 orphans. Now, what he called them out on is that none of these people did this. They were all railing against the bourgeoisie, but in their private lives, they were acting like the bourgeoisie. They were getting married. They were staying married. They were having kids in marriage, except for a couple really spectacular divorces. All right, looking at you, Bezos, they were able to signal, I am of this class strata. So what happens when we have Elysium, or this quiet luxury, all right, where people are no longer believing that word that I've been saying quite nice this entire time until I thought about trying to say it, ostentatious displays of wealth. And now people are getting a little bit less ostentatious about their displays of wealth. And what's causing that? All right. Could it literally be is like when the looting kicks off and the revolution comes, we're getting the guy on the hill first? Because I've been looking at that hill and that mansion up on that hill for the last 20 years on my way to work at 5:30 every morning, hating that guy. And now it's on like Donkey Kong, where I'm going first. So are we going to see this impact the real estate market in the luxury zone? A McMansion's a McMansion's a McMansion. All right. Are we going to start seeing the big mansions that you hear about in Hollywood go out of favor? Right? Have we hit peak mansion? Right? Do I care? No. I don't work that market. So I can't put up with bougie people, with ostentatious displays of grandeur. I mean, if you're one of those people who have to mention me within 3 minutes of me meeting you, that you have to tell me how much you make, I'm just going to think you're a small, pathetic little creature. And you're playing a game and keeping score, and you're playing a game that I don't play, and you're keeping score with points that I don't consider a point. So, but you will see this trickle down like anything else that happens up there. Then you start seeing your elite aspirants starting to follow as that price point comes down. All right. Maybe we won't be talking this bougie organic gardening, studio apartment living. All right. Maybe we'll see something like coming a little bit more. Maybe we'll actually see what, my Ray Dawson's patented, Purina prole holes for the proletariat, which is literally, here's your box. There's your McDonald's downstairs. Here's your food vouchers. Shut up. Don't crime. All right. And then we get into basic earned income, and then we're just all living in boxes, eating the bugs. Right. But I think as long as people realize that it's really nice to have your own space, and it's really nice to have your own yard, and it's really nice to sort of be able to choose your neighbors, right? I don't think these whole things are going to be as big an impact on normal human being real estate. Another luxury belief right now is our great mayor of New York City, Mandami, has done two things this week. Just to show you how, all right, they're doing a 4% annual luxury tax on second homes in New York City above $1 million. And it graduates scales and goes up. So if you have a second home in a penthouse in New York City that costs $100 million or $10 million, all right, you could be paying an extra 4% every year to New York City because you're not living there full time. And let's see, $10 million times 4%, that's like $400,000 a year that you're cutting. So his idea is by taxing these luxury bougie apartments and penthouses and stuff like that, it will lower the price of housing. Because as soon as you lower the price of that $1 million penthouse apartment in the sky, all right, because people are selling their second homes, then next thing you know, the Jeffersons can move in. Which is fine. But you got to remember that Jefferson's moved into the deluxe apartment in the sky because he ran a chain of, I think it was laundromats. And that was a work your way up to that position thing. It wasn't that we brought the prices down so you could afford it. He worked his way there. And for all you guys under the age of 50, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so that's the number one thing. So we're gonna have this big tax on the rich that's supposed to generate like, what was it, $500 million. And that $500 million is supposed to go in housing for people who can't afford affordable housing. Number two, there are, I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but a ridiculous number, 10 to 15,000 unfilled units in New York City. And the reason why those units are unfilled, meaning the landlords literally can't afford to put anybody in there. Because when you put a tenant in your unit, it's going to cost you money. They break things. They leave the toilet, the shower running. They flood. They trip and fall. Tenants are expensive. And because of rent control, these landlords are restricted by law to rent that house out at a price that people would actually be interested in paying. And because they're restricted by law, they've chosen to take their asset off the market. You will not let me rent this out for as much as it costs me to rent it out. I lose money putting somebody in there. You're not interested in making up my difference. So I'm not going to put my product on the market. All right? And so now we have 15,000 empty. So what's the result of this? Well, in the grand tradition of Kelo versus New London, now they're going to eminent domain these properties and take them over for the peoples. And then the peoples are going to provide this housing, these 15,000 units, to the peoples. So the peoples can have housing, 15,000 new units. That's great. Who's going to upkeep that, Mr. Mayor? Where are you getting the money when somebody decides to flush your tampon down the toilet for the third time that year? Who's going to send the plumber up there to plumb that out? All right. Who's going to repair the floor? Who's going to repair the ceiling of the poor sucker who lives underneath her? I don't know. It could be the purpose of Mayor Mondami is to serve as a bad example for the rest of the world. And I, for one, H.L. Mencken said it best, right? The nice thing about democracy is that the people with get what they want, and they deserve to get it good and hard. So these are the big meta trends going on in real estate right now. What does this mean to you, to the end consumer? Not much. Interest rates are up. If you need a house, buy a house. If you have an extra house you want to get rid of, give me a call. I'll help you get rid of it. All right. Rates aren't going anywhere down anytime soon. There's a malaise in the real estate market. Everybody's just stumbling around out there going, oh my God, it's really bad this year. Gil's got to get a sale or his wife's going to leave him. Yeah, well, go make a sale. All right. Once again, what happens if this is a new norm? What happens if this really is end stage capitalism? Not something I believe in. All right. But hat tip to my lefty people who keep hoping the society collapses so they can be a warlord. I walked in your shoes once. So, and let's think about the little luxuries. A friend of mine just sent me a video of Alton Brown describing and eating a peach. And the sensuousness of eating a peach and what that means to him. True luxuries in the little things, right? Eating a peach, watching a sunset, a good meal with friends, reading a good book, watching your children and pets around water, going through life not driving into anything flooded, having the time and the inclination to work your circles, a good phone call with your mom. You guys have a great weekend. Catch you next week.